Are you looking to get ready, be prepared, and transform your financial future? Then you've come to the right place. This is the Get Ready Money podcast with Tony Stewart, where Tony has insightful conversations with financial experts who are changing the way we think about money. Catch up on the latest financial trends and hear practical advice from Tony and his expert guests so you can build healthy habits that work. Be empowered with tips for implementing small changes that can have a big impact on your financial future. So sit back and get ready to hear from today's guest.
Welcome to the Get Ready Money podcast, changing the way we think about money. I'm pleased to be joined today by Katherine, Rhianna, Basore, and Joe Saul-Sehy. In this special episode, we'll be discussing saying yes and to money and the intersection of improv and money. Welcome, everyone, to the Get Ready Money podcast. Thanks for being here today.
Thank you, Tony.
Thanks a ton, man. This is going to be fun.
Yeah, this is great. I'm looking forward to this conversation. Before we really jump in, let's do a quick round of introductions, a little bit about yourself, a quick origin story, and why you're passionate about helping people change the way we think about money. Rhianna, you want to kick off?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Rhianna Basore. I'm a money mindset coach for high-achieving creative women. I started out as a professional creative since God was a child, and I found even at the height of my career, I still didn't have the money and portfolio that I wanted to feel that I was at the top of my industry. So I had one of those breakthrough moments, discovered what I didn't know, which turned out to be money and finance knowledge, and have since then completely lived debt-free, have invested in my first property in Southern California, and have built a thriving coaching business around really becoming a translator of these money business concepts into practical, applicable stories, which I know Katherine also works in, and metaphors that allow more creative, heart-focused individuals to really live the best principles. So I'm so glad to be in this space. Thank you, Tony.
Oh, awesome that you're here today. Joe, you want to go next?
Sure. I'm Joe Saul-Sehy. I'm the co-host and creator of a podcast called The Stacking Benjamin Show, which we call the greatest money show on earth, because it truly is meant to be a circus of you can do it, ideas, and a show with a lot of comedy. I think there's people have enough shame in this space. They feel bad about stuff that they've done with money. When I was a financial planner in my early days, I was one of the top financial advisors. American Express had an advisory division, and that later on was called Ameriprise Financial. But in the early days, when it was American Express, I was a PR spokesman for the company. I was on television for them, and I was a money disaster because while I was telling everybody else all these genius things to do and it was working, I didn't think the laws of the universe applied to me. So I was living two lies. Number one was that you don't have to surround yourself with smart people and a team of great advisors, whether that's financial advisors or anything else in your life. Surround yourself with smart people. I had to learn that. And number two was, it doesn't matter how much money you make. If you have horrible money skills, you can still outspend it. Like at the time, my first year as a financial planner, I made almost $90,000, which in today's dollars, it was 1993. So in today's dollars, that'd be like making $200,000. It didn't matter. I could have made $250,000. I would have spent more. I would have spent 280. If I made 280, I would have spent 310. I was always just doing back of the envelope math. So I created Stacking Benjamins after selling my business when I turned 40, and really have enjoyed the past 12 years of episodes. We're on episode 1602 as we record this.
Wow. That's amazing. 1602. I think this is like episode 150 for me. So I've only got, 1,500 to go.
That's a long time though, Tony. The average length of a podcast is 7 episodes. So if you make it past 7, so to make it past 100 is just absolutely amazing, Tony.
Well, and make it past 1,000. Very few people have made it past 1,000. So that's awesome. And I see you've got a guest in the back too.
I do. Yeah. That's my buddy Cooper. He's always my companion here in Mom's Basement.
Awesome. And Katherine.
Hello, I'm excited to be back. I am Katherine Pomerantz. I am also an actress turned accountant and money coach. I focus specifically on small business owners, so I really want to help entrepreneurs and experts master the creative language of money because, as we all share this viewpoint, money is actually really playful and can be really fun and can really help us understand and make sense of all of our chaos. So I help people have that perspective so that they can easily map out and then measure and then actually achieve their most ambitious business goals. So I use my money storyteller method, building on that artistic background, helps people use storytelling tools like the hero's journey, like improv, any of these playful things, so that money can be a teammate on this journey. And so instead of working so hard for money, we're going to put money to work for you, and it's going to work hard on your behalf. And that's kind of our inroad. I know everyone on this call, and Tony and I, when we did our last interview, if anyone remembers that, we kind of had this wild talk around like, wow, isn't this great? And I was like, I know other improv people who should come talk about this with us. So I'm personally just really delighted that we're all in this room. This was a little pet idea of mine and Tony's. And so thanks guys for coming.
Thanks for the invite to the money party.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for being here. And yeah, Katherine, as you mentioned, is during our conversation, that's where the inspiration for this episode came from. Because improv really is at the heart of money, is you have to be able to adapt. And for me, that's a spirit of improv. Anybody want to just do a quick definition of what improv is for our audience?
I think there's one part of it that is super important. I don't know that I can do the full definition, but I think the key to good improv, because you think that improv is just talking extemporaneously, but there truly are some rules. And I think the rules, though, are situational. You get into a certain situation and you always go with this way of advancing it forward. And I'm sure we'll dive into this more, of advancing things forward. And for me, as an example, I talked about my bad money habits. I need to develop a set of on-the-fly rules because life is improv. I'm at the grocery store. My debit card's not working because I have no cash. What am I going to do next? So in improv, you're with a group of people, you're in a situation, and you have these rules to help you determine on the fly what the best thing is to do next.
Yeah. And I really like building off of that is not just to do next, like you have an end goal, which is one of your favorite quotes, Joe, is like begin with the end in mind. It's like, we need a scene to happen. We need a good, positive, interesting outcome. So on the fly, I can follow these rules, but I know I'm pushing towards I'm pushing towards somewhere different, hopefully somewhere better, but I'm pushing towards somewhere different. I don't want to be in this situation. I want to go to this other situation. I want something new to happen, right? It's storytelling on the fly. I think we're titling this episode Yes and, which is like the core improv idea, is that whatever somebody throws at you, you say yes, and you're going to add to it. And I think that that's just such a great attitude with money, is that you cannot control what's going to happen, but something will happen. So rather than be panicked and like scarcity and, oh my God, I got to save, like there's always a new emergency coming. It's like, no, let's like, yes, this is happening. And here's what we're going to do next. Here's what's going to happen next. I think is a great attitude to approach money management, which is why I thought this idea would be so much fun to talk about.
It's so true, Katherine. And I think also because it is such a Zen way of driving what you're after, right? Because you're also not leading scenes. You're in a team place. You're responding to what you're being given. And that's so much like money and life as well, which is, we have an intention, we have some rules, as Joe talked about, but we really respond to what we're thrown, given where we are in the moment. And so we're staying loose, we're staying open, we're listening really actively, we're taking in a lot of information and then responding from there. And that openness allows us to see new possibilities where maybe we might have felt stuck or cornered or pigeonholed. And so the improv approach to money really just lets us stay in that place of possibility, which invites more ways to allow money to flow freely in our life. So it's so held in balance.
Beautifully said.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that listening really actively, and I've had a lot of guests on the show talk about listening as a superpower. and as a skill. And improv forces you to listen, because if you don't listen, you're going to kill the scene. And to me, a big part of improv is I sort of think it like, you know, volleyball, when you're kind of just keeping the ball going in the air. And that's really what improv is. And I think sometimes we forget that with money, is that, you know, it's about just keeping the ball forward and keeping everything moving and cooperating. You know, so, you know, let's talk about some of the principles. We've already gone into yes and, you know, we've started that conversation. It's like, why is yes and so powerful to the money conversation?
I think that, oh, Joe,
No,
go
go
ahead.
ahead, Rhianna.
I was just going to say that I think we brushed on it a little bit, which is so often when we come to money, we focus on lack, what we don't have, the limitations. But yes, and requires us to accept and receive what is, whatever that $1 situation is that we are currently in, and to look for something bigger, to expand beyond ourselves, to embrace new relationships, new avenues, new thoughts, new mindsets, in order to become that more expanded version of ourselves. So often when it comes to money, I think it's really our mind that limits us. The knowledge is out there, the advice, the coaches, they're all out there. They're on this call, the podcasts. But it's embodying the person who can have that more improved relationship with money that requires you to expand into that and space and not see yourself as stuck where you are.
That reflects Joe's story, right? He was in the room with all the smart people, but
Yeah.
look at what it was actually happening behind the scenes. So
That's
Joe,
right.
you had a thought too about yes and.
No, yeah, I really think that yes and is important in so many ways. But I think specifically on somebody just starting off with their money, worries about there's all these things that I have to know. I have to know all of these things. And I see people freak out and they end up doing nothing. What's the right investment to buy? Which is why I think J.L. Collins' book is so important, The Simple Path to Wealth, because he says, I think to young investors, he wrote the book specifically for his daughter, just buy the whole market. Don't worry about it. Like get rid of that. But you get to a certain point and you go, yes, and because it's the simple path to wealth, not the optimal path to wealth, not the perfect path to wealth. And once you get your feet wet as an investor, now you can yes and onto what's more. I also think it's important when it comes to making money, which is a big part of the factor that I think people don't explore. I found that for me, I thought making money was everything and I didn't need to do the other half. Most money nerds, as you guys know, the people that are probably going to watch this are people that focus on the great money management half, but they don't think about the income piece enough, which
That was
so often
me. That was me. Starving artist over here for a long time. I could budget like crazy. Can I make $1? No.
and so often as you are proof of, well, actually, it's funny, Katherine, let's use you as an example. Let's say that you out of high school are somebody that just loves math, right? So you have the skill to maybe work to be a math teacher, which is a great profession to have, not a high paying profession, but let's say maybe you want to make more money. So you learn how to also be a bookkeeper on the side. So you take your math and you go, yes, and I will be a bookkeeper. Then you decide to become a CPA. You yes, and to get your CPA. Then you become the chief financial officer of a company. Next thing you know, you're working in mergers and acquisitions. Next thing you know, you're Katherine Pomerantz. So you go up and up and up and up. But as you keep saying yes to this unique talent that you have, this thing that you love, you find your income possibilities can get bigger and bigger and bigger just by saying, I don't have to do 50 different things. I can take this one skill I love and chain even more skills on top of it and blossom this joy into maybe a bigger paycheck.
And I think that's a powerful word, joy, because we're also blossoming relationships. What you're talking about is expanding your network of connections. And that's a key part of money as well, because the people we spend time with, the people we listen to, the people whose habits we model become our own. So as baby Katherine is going on her money journey, she is building more informed, more people who are bringing more to the table with their money knowledge. And that's allowing her to build in those relationships and in that modeling to make that web to build that well-being, right? Like whatever we've brought to naturally, we need that village mentality to hold space for us as we build those skills.
Absolutely love that, because we get power through that. One of my favorite books is a book by a guy named Austin Kleon. It's called Steal Like an Artist.
Oh, yeah.
Favorite.
What I love for anybody that hasn't read Steal Like an Artist, it's about take the things around you that you love, add those to your game. Don't rip people off, but pay homage to them, riff on it to make it your own. You know, our podcast, Stacking Benjamins, is a complete riff on all my favorite podcasts. I just took all my favorite parts, put it together into this weird amalgamation that really is me. But heck, I'm always happy to tell people exactly where the inspiration came from and all the people I collaborated with to make it. So Rhianna, I think that community piece really is a hit.
So I want to hijack the conversation a little bit. If we're picking on baby Katherine, something Tony said really stuck out with me that I think might be another valuable inroad is about that active listening. And this is something that comes up in my work because I talk about money as our teammate. So I literally, it's like, it's a person. Let's go talk to our money. Let's go communicate with our money. So I would love to hear from you guys. Like, we talked about being an active listener. We talked about being in the moment. Okay, but what does that actually look like if I'm dealing with like dollars and cents and spreadsheets? How do I go listen or talk to my money?
Well, I think listening always starts in conversation, right? Like in my work, I have something I've developed called the money monsters, which are the voices in our head that tell us we don't deserve the money that we're seeking. You'll never make money at that. This is something that Katherine and I are well used to in our starving artist background. And it really transcends industry in my experience. But I believe that by tapping into what the money monsters are telling us to stay away from, we can rework that into good advice. It is good advice not to spend all your money on fancy shoes like I used to do. It's a really good idea to like sock that away in another account instead. So when I go into conversation with my money, I have to welcome my money monster to the table, who may be a naysayer, may have a little bit more of a negative tone than a yes and tone, but is keeping me in integrity for my overall best interest.
Well,
That's fun.
It's not just also yes and, isn't there a but also, isn't there a flip side to that in improv X circles? I think like it's been a while. I've been an accountant longer than I've been an actress now, y'all. I'm sorry.
If not, you have invented it here, Katherine. Improv principle of Katherine Pomerantz.
There you go.
Well, I think there is that flip side that you can't deny someone else's reality. You know, that you don't say but, that but is the quickest way to end a scene. You know, like if Joe came in and Joe said, you know, hey, I'm the mayor of the city and I want everybody to wear pink every day.
Keep going. I like this.
That's a dumb idea. We're done. That's the end of the scene.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and Tony, to jump back into that, because I want to set up something that's really different than traditional Western storytelling, which is based in conflict. Improv is based in agreement. And so when you come to the table agreeing with your money instead of fighting with your money, that's a transformative relationship. You are coming, as Katherine says, as a teammate. Maybe you see it as a partner. Sometimes I think of money as being a romantic relationship. We need to romance in our life. When we come with that positive, open energy, we can transform the conversation the same way we can interpersonally. And having that improv approach is leading with the positive intrinsically, as opposed to the I want this, you want that conflict of other styles of Western drama.
And I think it's interesting to think of that in a money context, because when you're in agreement in an improv scene, there's still conflict in the scene, right? Like there's still external things happening, but you and the people that you're doing the scene with are in agreement with each other. So, you know, I'm having this beautiful image of us in like, you know, the rehearsal space. Like it's me, it's my money, it's all of us here. Like we all work together. We're on the same team. Like we're gonna support each other. And yeah, there's conflict, but that's just making the scene interesting for everybody watching and making it interesting for us. And ooh, what are we going to respond to next? And how are we going to do this next thing? It's very, again, play is a big
Yeah.
word for me right now. And so it's like, this is very playful, right? You talked about joy, Rhianna. And so I think that, yeah, that image I think is just such a useful reframe. And not to give credit to everyone in this room, but I'm like, I don't hear a lot of like personal finance people nailing that element very well. Is how do we make this more fun, right?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, Joe, go for it.
No, which I mean, she's singing off my song sheet. Obviously, that is the number one thing. The temperature's already high enough, and if we can lower that temperature, and if I can profile people that have climbed the second highest peaks on every continent in the world, you can open a Roth IRA. My goal is to take these things we're trying to achieve, these money monsters, like Rhianna calls them. I love that name, and give them a face and go, oh, it's not this huge demon that I thought it was. In fact, it's funny, Rhianna, as you were talking, I was thinking back to when I was a financial planner, and often the thing that I would hear people say is, I just don't like to look at it. I don't like to look at my money. And I remember those days where I thought, if I don't look at my debt and this bad spending pattern I have, it'll magically get better, right? Which we know that just makes the monster worse. And the longer you don't look at it, and what's powerful is truly to me the same thing that's powerful when I see great improv. These people's ability to seemingly think on their feet is really a product of, and this is what fascinates me, your brain coming up a solution just because you ask it in the moment to come up with something out of air. Literally, in the time you can go 3, 2, 1, the brain comes up with a yes and an answer that, if somebody's really good at improv, just flows. And if it's really great, you're like, how did they come up with that just then? But I found that, just by laying it out in front of you. Rhianna, to your point, if you just lay out the money monster in front of you, whatever the issue is that you're dealing with, it is amazing how powerful your brain is at coming up with these instantaneous, well, maybe I should try this. Maybe I should look at this. And that was just categorizing your expenses and looking through your budget can be such a powerful thing, only because you're giving yourself the opportunity to improv off of what's this stuff in front of me.
And not hiding from what Katherine's talked about, the challenge of the given moment, right? Like, I think, to go back to your point, Katherine, I think it's less conflict in improv. It's more like, what is the rules of the game? What is the activity we're engaged in? And if I'm engaged in an activity like Joe's talking about, like looking at my profit and loss, I'm looking at my metrics for last quarter or whatever it is, these things that are very confronting, it becomes an activity rather than a battle. And when we engage in a shared activity through play, exactly right, Katherine. Yes, all the time.
That.
It allows us to transcend what we've done before and to discover new paths. And in discovering new paths, we see new patterns, we see new relationships, we see new possibilities, and that's how we can move into the next place with our money. And that sense of play around given circumstance is exactly what kids do. I want to have a blanket fort, but there needs to be a record player, and we need soup, and maybe let's also watch cartoons under it. We're just solving problems in a yes and way that's making it better. And we can do that with our money as well.
So we
And
have
it's always better with soup and a record player, by the way.
I mean, life is.
So we've got to have conversations with ourselves, those money monsters, which shout out to Rhianna and her money monster work. I just, as a money story person, I'm like, oh, she's so good. But then I guess to Joe's point, like, then just look at the money. To talk to our money, it's as simple as just look at it, right? And I think that that's 100% right, because I see that in my work. I mean, that's the number one thing I'm helping people overcome, is stop being so avoidant around it. But Tony, we haven't heard from you in ages. Like, what are your takeaways, dude?
Oh, I just turned off the podcast. No, just kidding. It made me think of a couple different scenes, but it's really a commitment to what you're doing. It makes me think of Stephen Colbert. I don't know if everybody here has watched his monologues, but you can tell he's done improv, because when he does something and he has an object, he puts it off to the side. He doesn't just drop it. He's really committed to, if he's got a glass of water, to having that glass of water and then putting it down And I think sometimes in our financial lives, we don't really have that full commitment when we look at something. And so that always strikes me as really powerful, is that a lot of people will talk about things with their money, but they're not really committed to the scene. And improv, to me, always requires full commitment. Otherwise, the audience doesn't buy into it if you're not buying into it. And I think that's sometimes something that's lacking for people, is they don't buy into what they're doing. They're doing it because they hear other people talking about it. Like crypto might be a good example. Other people are buying crypto. Why are you buying crypto? Oh, I have no idea, but everybody else is buying it. So for me, I think commitment is a big part of it.
Yeah, I think it's so true. I think it's hard to stay open when we're triggered. There's a real vulnerability that makes that play makes safer than it otherwise would. And I think the rules or the given circumstances of play and improv allow us to be vulnerable to the moment in ways that as adults navigating our life, we're not. I'm flashing back on a very early client, a beloved longtime friend, and she needed to open a business account because she had all of her money in one account. And I did the research. I sent her the link. I was like, it takes 3 minutes, click on the link. And she never could. It was too vulnerable to step into someone who had that level of control over their business finances. And I think about that level of childlike fear all the time, because we do need to be braver than we think we're capable of to make a new choice. And the play of improv gives us that superhero mask and cape and really lets us lean into the possibilities of those brave moments.
I think it's also fun because it's pretend, right? Improv is all pretend, and at the end of the day, it just drops. And I have actually given that advice to my clients. I'm like, I'm going to map out, like, we're going to forecast everything you want for 2025, right? That's literally what I'm doing all day, every day right now with my business owners. But I always tell them, like, this is not a goal. You're not committing to this. I'm not saying you're going to go do this. Let's just look like when we build it out. Let's just like throw some things around. Let's like be a little creative here. And then you just give me feedback about what it looks like at the end. And I often send people with, okay, just like pretend you're going to be the person who's already figured this out. Go do that for like an hour a week. See what happens. Right. So like I literally give people permission to be like, you're not committing to this. Just go play with it and see how it goes. And it goes really fast. They often get a lot of what they want really fast because I give them permission to be like, you just pretend, just make it up. It's fine. Like, you'll be fine.
And that's an improv 2 technique, act as if it were true.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm thinking about the value of this in so many parts of my life. I remember early on when I was on television, I was scared to death. I was absolutely afraid. And then somebody told me to use these neuro-linguistic programming techniques, which really are improv techniques, as I'm listening to Katherine, talk about just the playfulness. I just got on and I pretended I was one of my favorite TV commentators. It was a local commentator in Detroit. I pretended I was him the entire segment. And before I knew it, it was over. And it was really fun. And I liked it. And then I grew into it and kind of grew into my own voice at the same time. It was the same with the podcast. Just, we pretended that we were these other shows that I liked. And so through through pretending, we were able to create this thing that ended up becoming our voice. And certainly at the beginning, we didn't find our voice, but I feel like people are like that with their money when they're so afraid to open the Roth IRA or look at their savings account, or heck, even open up the credit card statement. Like if you pretend you're someone who's brave enough to do that, that's a great place to I think begin to get ourselves that right mindset. The thing about mindset I don't like as much as I like play and pretend. I like that way better. Mindset sounds hard. It's, you know what I mean? It sounds like this big challenge. And if I think, oh, I just got to pretend I'm somebody that would open this. Okay, I'll open it.
That makes me think of exactly what you said about like the book, The Simple Plan to Wealth, right? It's like, that may not be the best, the most optimized, or even the most customized to you. But if you just follow it. You just get started. You're going to learn about the process, and then you're going to find your own way of using money and the way you like it to help supplement your life and complement your goals. And then you can start to master the jargon and the upper level strategies and all of the things about investing and taxes and all that stuff you just have to know. But that stuff can come because you're already in the game, right? Like you're learning about it and learning how it applies to you, but you're already committed, as Tony had talked about. So I think that was a great way to bring it home, Joe. I think
but your point, Katherine, not only is that all makes it easier for you. I think then you have to just trust yourself to do one thing. If you're going to just make the investment to buy the entire stock market, all I got to do is put this in this account. I just got to do one thing. It's, in improv, what's interesting is once you're in the scene, what happens? Your brain just goes. Every time I've done improv, you just go. And sometimes it doesn't go that great. You're like, yeah, but that makes it funnier. And then everybody starts laughing because you kind of messed up the scene. And now everybody's got to zig and zag to make up for the thing the wrench you threw in the scene. And so because it's play and you're not that worried about it, just trusting myself to get in the scene to begin is really the only piece of courage you end up needing if you treat it like play. That's really cool.
Can I throw one more
get started?
Just get started. But based on what you said, Joe, I want to throw one more question to Rhianna about okay, so I believe you. I'm going to jump into the scene. I'm going to start playing with my money. But money is a lot more charged than a lot of other things. So while I can go and play with it, when I get that wrench thrown in and I now have to zig and zag, what if I just freeze instead? Right? Like, I know I have some answers, but I'd love to hear. I think that would be a really great takeaway too, is okay, we're in it, we're playing, we're yes-anding, but things are going to go wrong. So what do we do then?
Yeah, it's so good. Because it's interesting when Joe was talking, I think an extension of improv is clowning. And it's coming up for me a lot in what Joe just said, which is clown is about interacting with the audience through making mistakes. And so when you lean into what you want in a way of is this what you want? No, do you want this? If I do more, if I do it faster, if I do it on my head, do you have what you want? And that's about being in relationship with the feedback you're getting from what's around you, from your advisors, from the market, from your bank account, from your client base, whatever it is. And so rather than receiving judgment and shame because of that feedback, you're leaning into the feedback as positive and good. And so when you're stuck, you can turn to what we call the scene partner, the audience, and say, hey, friend, I'm thinking this. Does this work for you? And whatever they give you is positive because you're yes-anding their feedback. And so I think there's a really fabulous way of embracing the fail in order to get to the transformation.
I have a story actually of this happening to me. So I'm a stutterer. And when I get really tired, I stutter a lot. Usually now when I stutter, I just have these kind of unnatural pauses for a little bit because I do it in my head and not out loud. But there was one morning I hadn't gotten much sleep. I was worried about a family situation. I roll in at the TV station for my segment. I'm on camera and it's my turn to talk. And I get halfway through a sentence. And Rhianna, to your point, I just shut down. I can't stop stuttering and I can't remember. Then I start freaking out so bad that I have maybe 300, 400,000 people that are watching me and I am unable to complete a sentence. And then I'm freaking out so bad, I can't even remember what I was going to say. And then the coolest thing happened, which is everybody wants you to win. Everybody wants you to win. And this is the case, I think, with your money. The people around you want you to win. Not only did I find out later from people that watch this segment, were you okay? That just looked like it was, I felt so horrible for you, that you were in that situation. But what was really neat, the anchor even said, Joe, I think what you're trying to say is this. And once she got me started up, then my engine was running again and I was back out. But the anchor wanted me to win. The people watching wanted me to win. And when you think about it, that it's not conflict, and I love going back to the monsters just disappeared. I thought the monster in my head was getting bigger and bigger and bigger as I couldn't make a sentence. Man, when you've got your scene partners, they all want you to win in improv.
That's right. And oh, Katherine, please go.
Oh, I was gonna say, like, that reminded me, the biggest and only like standing ovation I ever got in my career. Is the
So far.
so far. Well, I'm not on stage as much.
There's an improv
okay.
thing.
I actually do get standing ovations talking about money, so I will say that. But when I was doing my performing full time, I was in a dance role, and I had a brief solo. It was a very fun show. I fell flat on my butt. I biffed it hard. That's the only time, and I was a minor role, so it's just a little solo. It was fine, like someone else. That's the only time the entire audience stood up and cheered me, because I fell down and I got up and I kept going, and I was so shocked. I was like, "Thanks, guys. I needed that today. Oh, that hurt. That one hurt. I remember that so vividly." So yeah, you're totally right, Joe. I was like, the best feedback I ever got from an audience was the time I completely wiped out. Like,
wow,
completely lost it. Yeah,
because you got back up.
yeah.
Well, it is, and it's also because of empathy. We
Sure.
are social creatures. And so when we see someone doing their best and struggling, our heart goes out to them. We want to help them. I do some nonprofit development work, and they always say, if you want money, ask for advice. And I think that allowing people to see you in uncertainty, in perceived failure, whatever it is a great example of them coming to your rescue and really helping you find the better solution. I actually had a actor nightmare dream last night, Katherine. And for those who don't know, that's where you dream you're in a play and you don't know your lines. In this case, I didn't even know what play it was. And so you spend the whole dream improving a play you don't even know what it is.
Yeah.
The level
That's
of
life.
off the charts. But when you talk to audiences later, it's their favorite shows because you're so alive, you're so present, you're so human and available to them. And that's true out in the money landscape for your relationships, for your clients, for your advisors, all of that. When we let ourselves be seen in that unprotected but still strong way, it allows them to see how they can help. And that always makes us better when we accept help when we need it.
Yeah, and people are always eager to help out. And the simplest way to get help is just to ask for help. So I hate to do this, but we have to get ready to close and wrap up. So, just to close out real quick, can everybody just share a quick summary of what your number one takeaway or tip is for the people watching and listening today?
It's so hard to say, Tony, because this is a group of brilliant humans, and I have a feeling we could fill several hours with this conversation. But I think my biggest takeaway is that leaning into play and joy will always make it better, whether it's this conversation or money conversations or anything else that's stuck in my life. When I tap into that glee, it really allows what feels stuck to become much looser and more filled with fluidity.
Yeah. Trust will be my takeaway. When Joe said that, I just had this whole like heart moment. I'm like, yep, that's what it is. It's trust ourselves, but that money monster, that's positive feedback, right? Let's reframe that feedback as something we do need and it's not shameful. Trust our money, trust the advice we're being given, trust when we go out and ask, like, how does this apply to me? And trust yourself, right? I think that was the through line of this conversation for me. We can be playful when we have that trust.
Mine is I have a mantra that I have had to tell myself a lot, which is because I feel a lot of fear all the time. And it's this great mantra that Nike had before just do it. It was feel the fear, but do it anyway. And I can see why they went with just do it because it's cleaner off the tongue. But feel the fear, but do it anyway is better for me. And the cool thing about viewing your life through play and improv is the only thing you have to fear is that first action. And if you get in that first action and realize that everybody wants you to win and that the rest of it, your brain is going to help take care of the rest of it and just trust yourself to go down that path, it's a lot more fun once you break through that little monster.
Yeah, I love it. And for me, it's really that it's based on agreement and listening and really trying to support each other. And I think that's really important is, that you're not on this journey alone and that there are people who want to help you. So this has been an amazing conversation. Let's go around real quick, find out where people can connect with you, learn more about what you're up to. Rhianna, you want to kick that off?
Sure. The best hub for my financial coaching work is at my website, selftrustfund.com, because we have to build the self-trust to create the trust fund that will allow us to earn our financial freedom. You can also follow me on Instagram at How to Make Money Your Friend. It's a great place for little reels and podcast snippets, as well as any content I'm working on. I'm really leaning into more of a content creation, thought leadership space, and that's a great place to find that first.
You
Awesome,
should, with your
awesome,
background, you're
Katherine.
very good at it, just FYI.
Katherine, where can we
Yeah,
find you?
same thing. You can find me on my website, KatherinePomerantz.com, Katherine with a K, Pomerantz with a Z. I'm also on LinkedIn under the same name. It's where I hang out mostly.
Cool. And Joe?
You'll find our Stacking Benjamin show every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, wherever finer podcasts are found. It's the greatest money show on earth. It's live from Mom's half-finished basement. We're always having fun. We write our scripts with a lot of comedy. We actually have a professional comedian who helps us write our shows. She's written for Comedy Central. And so our goal is to lower the temperature. The big thing for us, though, is we've created our first product. We have, and Katherine knows about this, we have created a guide to your workplace benefits. So,
Nice.
the average person is going to change jobs every 4.2 years. That fills you full of fear. That thing does. If you don't mess with it, the government will, because you've seen since I, became employed, there was no such thing as a Roth 401k. There was no such thing as an HSA. There's so many new benefits and they change them all the time. And if the government doesn't mess with it and you don't change jobs, your HR director might decide to either go better, cheaper, whatever it is. So we've got this. Read this before you choose your benefits guide, and it's at stackingbenjamins.com/benefits.
Fantastic. And for everybody watching and listening, as always, there will be links to everyone's websites, the resources mentioned in the show. So thanks everyone for joining today on the podcast. This has been a lot of fun. Appreciate your time and insights.
Thanks, Tony.
Super fabulous, Tony. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and thank you everyone, as always, for tuning into this episode of the Get Ready Money podcast. If you learned something today to change the way you think about money, please be sure to subscribe and tell a friend. Until next time, let's change the way we think about money.